This is something that President Trump ran on. It's something that he won on. And as one of his very first orders of business in November of 2024, is he called me and then nominated me to serve as the presidentially appointed, Senate-confirmed head of the Office of Legal Policy at DOJ. And when he did, he put out a statement about me. And in that statement, he said, Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. Now, on the one hand, that's a good description of what our next Attorney General ought to be. But more fundamentally, there is a reason why he used those words to describe me. And it's because he saw somebody who has spent his entire legal career leading legal troops into legal combat to deliver legal victories for Texas, for Texans, for our constitutional and Christian and Republican values at every chain of the justice system. And what exactly is that background that he saw? Well, I started my career as a Fight Texas Aggie. I know that we have a couple of Aggies. Right? Good. Right? You've had enough bad. I mean, this guy, if it's not clear enough, he does not like me, okay? All right? Just cool it, all right, brother? I appreciate you. That's right. And then I commissioned as an officer in the Marine Corps. We've got our Marine friend up here. Yeah, we will be having cran desserts afterwards in the parking lot. Spent 5 years on active duty, deployed to the northern Helmand province of Afghanistan. Did my 5 years on active duty before going to law school at the University of Texas. So I don't know if we have any Longhorns here. So I get a little bit of both. Okay. Yeah, and I married a Longhorn too, by the way. So I married him. So even in law school, though, was leading nationally recognized conservative student legal organizations. Clerked on the Texas Supreme Court for now Chief Justice Jimmy Blacklock. Spent several years in private practice before becoming Ken Paxton's deputy. But I wasn't just his deputy. He always referred to me as his offensive coordinator because he was our head coach. I was the offensive coordinator. And I'm proud to say that during my 3 years as Paxton's deputy, I sued the 46th president, that's Otto Penn Joe Biden, by the way. I sued the 46th president 46 times, and I won 85% of those lawsuits. And we not only went to war against the Biden administration, but we also went to war against big tech, big pharma, big blue cities and counties, big blue school districts that are indoctrinating our kids, big blue higher education boards and administrative bodies. If you stood in the way of law, order, justice, and the Constitution, I found a way to make your life full of problems. And we won overwhelmingly. We either sued you and won, or if I couldn't sue you, I'd investigate you. And then you just settle and cry mercy. But the point is that during those 3 years, I used the full might of the Attorney General's office to advance our values up and down the chain of the justice system. I then went on to serve as Senator Ted Cruz's chief of staff before getting the call down to West Palm Beach to go interview with the president and his team to join the administration. Now, in order to have my position in the Justice Department, I had to get confirmed by the Senate. And you've seen Senate confirmation, right? Everybody, the senators sitting around their horseshoe, and then you're kind of just sitting there with the lights, right? You're getting praised by the Republicans, every other person, and then you're getting harassed by the Democrats, every other person. And I'm proud to say that I got confirmed with exactly 0 Democrat votes, straight party line. And in fact, I don't think I'd be running for Attorney General. I certainly wouldn't be talking to you guys here in Lindale had I gotten even a single Democrat vote. Because I would have really honestly thought to myself, what did I do in my past to make a Democrat vote yes on me? But none of them voted for me. They all voted against me. And in fact, the senior Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Dick Durbin from Illinois, he put out a full-blown press release about me after I got confirmed. And he said, Aaron Reitz is a danger to democracy and a menace to the rule of law. Which, exactly, I was like, we know what you mean by that. You're darn right that I am, right?
Seems how we're a constitutional republic.
100%. And we all know what they mean by democracy. They just mean communism, okay? That's what they mean, right? We don't even use the same words anymore. You used to be able to live in a country where you could have honest disagreements with people, but you at least had the same language, same religion, same shared heritage, same understanding of what makes the West and America special. Now, we use the word democracy, they use the word democracy, means completely different things. We use the word man and woman, they obviously mean completely different things, right? They don't even know what they mean. But my job at the Justice Department was to effectuate all of the president's executive orders that implicated the Justice Department or the 94 U.S. Attorney's offices or anything that was justice or law and order related to, under statute, my job was to plan, coordinate, and execute matters of high priority to the president at the Justice Department. That's it. So I did that for a season, and then Paxton announced, and I engaged in several months of prayerful due diligence about whether it made sense to leave that post, a Senate-confirmed post, which, I mean, once you get that, you're a made man. You got to be a little bit crazy to leave something like that, to go roll the dice and run for elected office. But it became very obvious, not just to me, not just to Paxton, not just to grassroots leaders here in Texas, not just to donor types, not just to the Attorney General of the United States or Secretary of Homeland Security, but also to the President. Everyone understood that as we transition from Paxton to whoever the next person is, there has to be a degree of continuity and confidence in the next person. A standard, ambitious, climbing politician who says things on a campaign trail is not fit to transition from the unbelievable amounts of high-impact work that Paxton has been doing successfully for the past 10 years to just some wannabe climber. You need somebody who's been proven, tested, trusted, selected, vetted. And it became clear that as the field was shaping out, that that could potentially be me, and that's my pitch to you all on the campaign trail. Now, it's someone with that kind of background that is uniquely suited to serve as the Chief Legal Officer of Texas. Now, if you're here tonight, I would consider you, and I hope that you consider yourselves, to be uniquely well-informed, active Republican primary voters. A lot of folks out there are not. And so I always tell folks like y'all who are smart and you take this stuff very seriously to remember what exactly this job is. And we don't have to guess what it is. The Texas Constitution defines the job of Attorney General. And it says under Article 4, Section 22, that, quote, the Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas. This is a legal, law enforcement, executive branch job. It is not a legislative job. Now, we need good men and women in the legislature. And there's plenty of people running for re-election to the legislature. There's plenty of people currently serving in the legislature that aspire to a higher or a different office. But the criteria by which you evaluate fitness for each individual office must be tailored to that position. Take government and politics out of it. This is true in the private sector. If you're applying for a medical job, right? What matters is your medical experience, your licensing, your qualifications. Same thing with teaching, same thing with counseling, same thing with law enforcement. You know, you gotta have certain training in order to wear a badge. This all makes sense, but it's no different as Attorney General. The criteria that you should demand out of a candidate aspiring to be the Chief Legal Officer of Texas should present to you their legal qualifications. This is one of the defining features that makes me uniquely suited for this job as compared to my three opponents. It is a relatively crowded field. There's 4 of us. I won't talk about them by name in my remarks, but if you'd like to during Q&A, we ought to name names, because we're at a point now where you're looking at a ballot. You know who these people are. Let's talk about it. You've probably got your mailbox flooded with the rich kids photoshopped. May's been away. You've gotten your mailboxes flooded with this stuff. Okay, we got to talk about it because you're having to make a decision about who the best lawyer for the state of Texas is. Now, what I'm doing is I'm not running on a legislative record because passing legislation, working on a bill, introducing an amendment, stopping bad legislation from moving through committee, that's all important work, but it's not the work of the Attorney General. I am running on my record, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues that we care about. Now, I've met most of y'all for the first time tonight, so I don't know exactly what gets you motivated to be an activist in the Republican Party. But whether you're here because of election integrity or border security, pro-life issues, or K-12 education, higher education, environmental, energy issues, small business issues, regulatory issues, local government versus state power struggles, federal overreach, 10th Amendment issues, you name the issue. that motivates you to get involved as an active Republican, and I guarantee you that I have led legal troops into legal combat to deliver legal victories on those things. You can pass all the legislation you want, and if I were your standard issue politician, I would come in front of you and I would say, and we passed this bill, and you'd clap, because we like that stuff, right? And then after the clapping was done, you'd say, and we passed this bill, and you'd clap again, because we like that stuff. But here's the thing. Every single bill that gets passed that we all like, and in your minds right now you're thinking of which ones are your favorite. As soon as they get signed into law by the governor, as soon as the ink dries, every single aspect of all of our favorite marquee pieces of legislation immediately get thrown into bitter litigation and investigations in every court around the state at both the federal system and the state systems. The only thing that matters is not the photo op at the end of a legislative session, not the talking points that your elected official then comes back into the district so that you'll congratulate him or her on being so conservative. After all of that is done, is when the lawyers then get to work to vindicate that in court. And it's only after all of those pieces of legislation pass constitutional and legal muster does it have any effect at all. Similarly, there may be pieces of legislation that don't get mired in litigation at all, and yet they nevertheless need to be pulled off of the law bookshelf and turned into offensive tools. You can dictate X, Y, Z in a statute all day long, but if the chief legal officer doesn't take statute X, Y, Z and then turn that into an investigation with a task force, with coordination with federal law enforcement or local law enforcement, it doesn't matter. You can say, I like the bill that doesn't put boys in girls' restrooms. We all like that. What are you going to do about it? You can have a piece of paper that says don't do it, but if you don't have an attorney general who knows how to put together the investigatory law enforcement litigation and appellate team, who cares? It's just a document that your elected representatives put together with their staffs and lobbyists in Austin. It's no different. Now, I'm not denigrating the legislative process. It is an essential part of our checks and balances, our divided system, right? Legislative, executive, and judicial. However, I want you to remember this, and the reason why I'm maybe belaboring this point too much at a borderline civics lesson is just because you guys are very engaged and smart. You need to know these things. So if someone comes to you, like all three of my opponents do, I'm routinely voted as one of the most conservative legislators, you should say, well, thank you very much, that's great. Are you running for re-election to the legislature? Because if you're not, I don't care. I want to see your legal record. Show me your victories in court. Show me the appeals that you've won. Show me the investigations that have led to affirmative litigation and then victories. Show me the settlement agreements that have brought in millions, if not billions of dollars for the state. Because if you don't have a legal record, you're not qualified for this job. That is fundamentally what sets me apart from my three opponents, and it doesn't even come close. This is why President Trump trusted me to the senior ranks of the Justice Department, because of that record. This is why he called me a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for our Constitution, because of that record. This is why Paxton endorsed me to succeed him, saying, quote, Aaron Reitz is the only qualified person in this race that I would pass the baton down to. And I'll close with this thought. And then if we have time for Q&A, it's up to you.
Please,
Okay.
we'll ask some questions.
Good. So I remember we've talked, and you mentioned this actually, the oath that we swore, right? When I was, the first oath that I ever swore to the Constitution, I was 22 years old. As I was telling these ladies earlier, my hair was already fast approaching its current state. But I had my lieutenant bars pinned on. I raised my right hand and I said, I, Aaron Reitz, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, as somebody who kind of grew up in the era of the War on Terror, as somebody who went to Afghanistan, yes, I said the words and domestic, but I only thought about the foreign enemies. When you're wearing a military uniform, you think about going to Iraq or Afghanistan, you think about the foreign enemies. The next time that I swore that oath was in the West Wing with my wife and 4 kids on my left and Attorney General Bondi on my right. And I raised my right hand, wasn't in uniform, I was in a suit and tie, and yet I said the exact same oath word for word, no different. And in those intervening nearly 20 years, I had come to realize that yes, while we do have foreign enemies that we ought to take very seriously, I'm here to tell you that the primary enemies against our Constitution that we're confronting today are the domestic enemies.
Amen.
They are right here.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not even talking about the foreigners that are here, although they are threats to our Constitution. I'm talking about the born and raised Americans whose brains have been destroyed by leftism or Trump derangement syndrome and poisoned by our education system, and they now are represented in a mainstream political party called the Democrats, and they hate everything that we hold dear in this room.
Including us.
They hate us
Yes.
physically. They actually want to kill us.
Yes.
They hate our values. They hate our faith. They hate our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Amen.
They hate the English language. They hate our skin color. They hate our marriages. They hate the product of those marriages. They hate our happy children. They hate our safe communities. They hate a wholesome education. Everything about the Democrat Party today is bent towards destroying our constitutional republic. And the arena in which they fight more viciously and with more bloodlust than you could possibly imagine is the justice system. Trump trusted me to fight and win in that war. Senator Cruz trusted me to do it. Attorney General Paxton trusted me to do it. The Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court trusted me to do it. Our countrymen trusted me to do it in uniform while carrying a gun. And now, as a candidate for Attorney General, my ask to you is to trust me to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, as your next Attorney General of Texas. Thank you very much.